Hey everybody, so quick context for this video. In my last video talking about PlayStation and the whole exclusives and service debacle, I got a long comment from one of you fellas posing some questions and information going against what I was talking about, and while I was writing a reply, just kept getting longer and longer, so I decided to turn it into a video instead where we discuss the stuff the commenter brings up. So this comes from the 6th and the comment reads, "Hey bud, I really like your stuff. This is the first time I've heard you have a bad take in my honest opinion. Almost every console ever made is sold at a loss. The console manufacturers make money on licensing fees for other publishers and exclusives. Exclusives, or lack thereof, is why Xbox is dead." So I'll touch on this part a bit later in the response, but just in case, I have two videos I made very recently going over far more pertinent reasons as to why Xbox is failing than the exclusivity issue. Links to both will be in the description along with a link to the PlayStation video. Let's continue. Exclusives keep the PlayStation and Switch console markets good. Why would you buy an Xbox over a PC? You wouldn't. I think you just don't understand the economics of consoles. Do you have any sources or data that you can cite for anything you've said, or is it just your opinion unfounded?
Nice argument, Senator. Why don't you back it up with a source?
My source is that I made it the up.
Thanks for a good post, broski. If I were you, I would find out what the price of a PS4 is without Sony subsidizing the cost. Something tells me it would be 30% more. Do you think the entire video game ecosystem would be as healthy if consoles were prohibitively expensive for everyone? I understand it's cool to hate on these mega corporations, and I do get it, but common sense is common sense, and I think you're conflating services versus console prices. Both can be true. Sony is delivering bad service, and exclusives are important for the console's lifespan. Alright then, so that's it for the context, and without further ado, let's just get into it and take it bit by bit. So, I do know that consoles are always sold at a loss. I just believe that they should be selling them focused on the service that they provide rather than the exclusives they make. So, for example, if as a player I'm supposed to be finding value on PlayStation consoles based on the exclusives, then I may as well completely give up on the PlayStation brand right now, since Sony has spent the past couple of years focusing on the live service market. They're directly going against the player base that they built throughout the PS4 generation, which is composed of staunch fans of quality single-player games. Seeing them go off in the live service direction totally removes any interest that I have on PlayStation. Sony is investing in a direction that I'm not invested in. I also know that they rely on third-party sales and, of course, exclusive sales plus subscriptions to make their money, hence why they should focus on offering better service, better consoles. They should be wanting to be the place to play everything, not just the place to play PlayStation games. They should adopt policies and services that make people value their PlayStation console, as a system beyond what they are right now, which is just a padlock for PlayStation exclusives where everything else has less functionality while costing more money. I also don't want them to make the consoles more expensive, hence why they should sell their games on other platforms to multiply their profits. Doing that shouldn't be impossible if your console offers actually genuinely good service to the point where players aren't just buying them for the exclusive alone. You have to look at it in a balanced way. It's inevitable already that console prices are going to go way up. PlayStation 5 Pro is already prohibitively expensive in my eyes, with an $800 price tag for the console with a disc reader when it's still just a PS5. So as these prices go up higher, regardless of the RAM and GPU issues that we're undergoing right now due to AI and all that, which only make things worse for everyone, including of course PC gamers. But anyway, as prices go higher, the service must vastly improve to justify that price, the ecosystem in general, because the exclusives just won't cut it anymore. It's also a fact that as it is right now, you just can't miss. I'll probably develop on this a little bit later in the video, but nobody buys a whole console just for one exclusive game. It's obvious that whenever people did this, whenever people invested into the PlayStation, like for example with the PlayStation 4, it was because they were putting out consistently good exclusive games. And so you bought it to buy into the whole ecosystem, to be able to play everything. So of course the exclusives worked in that manner, but they needed to be putting out banger after banger after after banger. They cannot miss. If you start missing, the entire thing starts to crumble. Even if you release one mega banger, like let's say that, you know, Sony would be able to secure a sequel to Bloodborne, and it would be Bloodborne 2, and everybody would shit themselves because it's literally what everyone has been asking for years now. It's still going to be very hard to sell a console, especially now that they're more expensive than they were, for just one game. Everything needs to be firing off on all cylinders, and they are failing to do that. And so if they're failing to do that, it's because it's difficult. And so if it's so difficult to do it, just provide me with better service so that not everything leans on the damn exclusives. But the problem is that Sony is not doing that, nor interested in doing that. They're interested in making their service shit on purpose to nickel and dime us while holding the exclusives hostage to make us buy into the system. Obviously for us it doesn't sound that difficult to put on banger after banger after banger with only missing like once or twice. I mean, you know, the last generation we also had things like Knack and other games I never cared for like Concrete Genie, but the main releases were consistent enough, and so you may think, oh, but it's easy, it's not that hard to put out a banger after banger.
Yeah. Hardcore parkour!
Easy. It's not that hard to put out a banger after banger. I mean, come on. Just give the people what they want. But clearly, even though that sounds easy, it's clearly not being easy because they're failing to do that. And it's not just them. It's Xbox and it's a bunch of other companies in AAA because of the shit that they got themselves into. The agendas that they try to push. Like, for example, the live service thing is an agenda in its own way. Sony knows we don't want this, but they're giving us what we don't want because they want to force us to want it. They want to force us into their live services because they want an easy ticket to success. So if you can't rely on a company to be making exclusives for the right reasons, and by the way, making good ones, then how can the company rely on the exclusives to sell the consoles? And then the thing that's most annoying to me, and the biggest problem here, is that Sony is using exclusives to strong-arm people into still buying their consoles, while at the same time they sacrifice service to further monetize and restrict the PlayStation ecosystem. How long until that comes crashing down though? I don't have any data, as you ask, to prove that the success of this is owed to the goodwill that they farmed in the previous generation. This is why I just gave Ubisoft as an example in that last video rather than any empirical data. I mean, this concept alone is very hard to prove with any data at all. It's about intention, not really about numbers. But it is something I strongly believe in because it just makes sense. We can see it in other examples. Ubisoft is one of them, Disney is another. You know, the sequel trilogy was a huge success when it comes to money because of what it was attached to, rather than the quality of the movies themselves. But they lost a lot of that goodwill. And now, a few years later, of the same shit carrying on into the future with no positive change whatsoever, Star Wars is no longer the brand that it used to be. And Disney is able to put out Star Wars shows that completely flop. Something that was unimaginable 10 years ago is now the norm. Basically, the cheerleader effect is gone. The nostalgia value alone cannot sell the product anymore. I believe that this is the path that PlayStation is on with their exclusives. At some point, much more people will notice the PS studios of today are not the PS studios of the last generation. And the PlayStation ecosystem in general that once prided itself in being for the players is no longer the same either. The more people notice this, the more the exclusives will not sell the consoles, but service can. On PC, I don't use Steam because of Valve's exclusives. I mean, don't get me wrong, I used to play a lot of Counter-Strike and Left 4 Dead 2 with my friends from school, you know, every night we'd be playing that stuff, but that was a long time ago now. I barely ever play any Valve games anymore, and Valve barely ever makes any new games anymore. They got that whole meme going of them being incapable of making any game with the number 3 on it. The last game they made that was substantial was that Half-Life Alyx game or whatever, and it was a VR game, so I took a big fat shit on it. And yet, I'm still on Steam. Why? Because the service is immaculate. And you know, I bought a PC this year, but if I didn't, I'd be much more considerate of a Steam machine, or whatever they're going to call it, you know, the Gabe Cube, instead of either a PlayStation 6 or an Xbox, whatever they're going to call it. I mean, Xbox 2, Xbox Series W, Xbox 720, Xbox 900, maybe we're up to 900 now, I don't know, Xbox X5 GLR Series 7, 8, Jackpot 777, like I don't know what the fuck they're gonna call the next Xbox, but I can tell you that I would be far more considerate of getting that, you know, the GameCube thing that Steam is going to be making, because the service, again fellas, it's immaculate. A change in PlayStation's ideology could help them too. I gave small examples in the previous video, like how they idiotically killed off customization. I know it's small and anecdotal, and maybe that's an L on me for not taking an extra week or two gathering more notes of the many ways that PlayStation has disappointed me since the turn of the last generation. I can give you another one since it's at the top of my head right now. You know, back at the turn of the generation I didn't have a PS5, I couldn't afford any new consoles. It took me over 2 years to finally get it, so I spent a lot of time still playing on the PS4. And the really shitty thing Sony did was, in their PlayStation Plus service, which they tried to justify extra value by lending us a couple of games a month, they began borrowing games from PlayStation 4 users and making them exclusive to PlayStation 5 users. So for example, let's say they offered Oddworld Soulstorm, which was actually a game that this happened with. The game on the store did not exist as just one game with one page. It was 2 separate pages with 2 separate downloads, one for the PS4 and one for the PS5. And then Sony blocked the PS4 users from downloading the PS4 versions of these multi-platform offers. So, and by the way, get this, the PlayStation Plus actually offered way more games before. We used to get like 5 to 6 games a month. Sure enough, they weren't all big, it was usually like 1 or 2 major offers and then the rest were indie games, but sometimes the indie ones were even better than the big ones. So as time went by, as Sony began this descent into telling their player base to go themselves so they could make a few extra cents on the dollar, they reduced it to 3 games a month. Then the PS5 finally releases and suddenly for PS4 users it becomes 2 games a month, with the major offer of the month being exclusive to PlayStation 5 only. Oh, and of course let's not forget this also came off the back of a price hike on the subscription, one of the many that would follow later, such as the new tier system. A tier system that also, you know, again, small thing, but this is sadly the theme here. It's not like Sony grabs a big hammer and bonks my head in one swing. It's more like Sony keeps pinching us with needles. Little thing after little thing that in the end results in big damage. So, a tier system that doesn't allow for you to freely choose other tiers with a discount. Okay, let me slow down because this might have actually not made sense. Let me elaborate. So the deal is, usually once a year, Sony would do a subscription discount around Christmas. This was always the time when I renewed my subscription to PlayStation Plus so that I could save about 15 to 20 bucks. One time, they gave me a discount of 3 months to try PlayStation Plus Extra for like $10. So I took it. Then, Christmas season comes and those PlayStation Plus discounts pop up and I wanted to get one to revert back to the PlayStation Plus Essential because the subscriptions to Extra and Premium were retardedly expensive, guys. Literally, they offered less than the Game Pass and they cost more. I don't know if that's the case anymore since Xbox's latest price hike, but it was the case for years. Way more expensive than the Game Pass and with way less value. Anyway, I couldn't use the yearly discount. I was forced to either commit to a PlayStation Plus Extra or a subscription to PlayStation Plus Premium. They wouldn't let me take advantage of the discount to get the lowest tier of PlayStation Plus Essential because my current subscription at that time was PlayStation Plus Extra, and they cannot allow you to take advantage of discounts for lower tiers. Well, what do you think this is? What the hell do you think this is? We're PlayStation over here, we're not a goddamn charity. Sony, you know what, I'm not gonna say anything. I don't want to get too mad. I'm already mad, I don't want to get too mad. You either get the same tier, the next tier, or you can go kick rocks. That's basically their policy. I tried to cancel my subscription and revert back to nothing, literally lose money on purpose so that I could take advantage of the sale anyway, but I failed. They wouldn't even let me kill off my subscription to take advantage of a new sale. I was forced to keep the tier 2 subscription, and then when the time ran out on my subscription, when it ended, the discount had already ended too. So I had to buy a new subscription at full price. All for what? So that I could not only play video games online, but also access those offers. That's why I don't even like to call them offers. On Xbox, they're actual offers. They give you the game. So if you were an Xbox Live Gold member, you would get 2 games a month, and you would keep those 2 games. Like, they were actually yours. They were actual offers. You could download them, they were on your library, and then fucking 10 years later, you could come back, not have a subscription, and still be able to play those games. On PlayStation, that's not how it happens. They rent you the games. They let you play the offers that you claimed, but only if you are subscribed. If your subscription runs out, all of those little games that you collected over the years get a little padlock on them. This, I feel like, has been my entire experience over the past few years with PlayStation. Little things like these, picking at loyal players, loyal fans, year after year after year, while at the same time the quality of the exclusives goes down. So again, at the end of the day here, service-wise, I'm done with PlayStation completely. They have been getting worse, not better, and there's nothing here to smile about. Except for the recording feature. PlayStation has the best, like, background recording feature on every system, including Steam. It's better than Steam because Steam sometimes gets the audio out of sync. Same thing with Xbox, except with Xbox it happens super often. With Steam it doesn't happen that often, it only happens sometimes. It might even be my fault because you can actually set settings with different codecs and shit, and I don't understand any of this. I need to check out a guide online to see which one is the best for me. But regardless, on PlayStation, shit just records perfectly, never without a goddamn problem. Everything else though, they're better than Nintendo, which is saying nothing because Nintendo is basically 2 steps away from coming to their players' own houses and break their knees over them buying some bootleg Pokemon plushie or something. So, service-wise, big ew. And when it comes to exclusives, things have really only gotten worse instead of getting better, or at least remaining the same, because A, they're getting themselves into muddy ideological sandpits that have only proven to make games worse. That's why Xbox is utterly cooked, by the way. It's not the sole reason, but it is a major one alongside insane mismanagement and spending. But them putting games on PC isn't that big of a problem. They would probably be doing really well if the games themselves weren't shit and they hadn't spent money like idiots on the acquisitions. You're absolutely right that there's no reason to choose an Xbox over a PC, but only if you ignore price. If you can't afford a gaming PC, an Xbox Series X console would actually be a no-brainer if they hadn't begun screwing up their goddamn business so much in the past couple of years, and of course their whole exclusive situation, which is in absolute sewage state. And here's why. Let's start with Smart Delivery. Smart Delivery was a very simple thing that I even mocked Xbox for when they first announced it. Basically, it's just the concept that if you have an Xbox One, which is the previous one, right? And you have an Xbox Series X, which is a new one, and then you bought a game that released on both, so for example Cyberpunk 2077, you just own the game and you are able to play both versions of the game on the different systems, okay? It's very simple, it's even stupid to say it, but it ended up actually being a significant thing because PlayStation was not doing that. PlayStation was building a platform for developers to be able to separate both versions of their games and sell them separately as upgrades. Sony even did it with some of their games, like if you wanted the new Horizon Forbidden West and you already had it on PS4, you needed to pay $10 to get the new version. Same thing with God of War Ragnarok. Now, on some of these, people made so much noise online that they went back on their word, but they kept the same concept for future releases on PlayStation, and then they tried to justify them by giving a little bit of extra sauce on them. For example, the director's cuts were the type of thing that we're talking about here, where they were like, okay, yes, but he's not just, he's not just an upgrade to video game, it has some new things, okay? It's the director cut, it comes with a new outfit or whatever, you know what I mean? Please pay extra $10 for us to get extra money for the same game. Thank God that people didn't follow up on this. Like, for example, I remember being pissed off that Ubisoft, those assholes, were actually not taking advantage of this. They released Assassin's Creed Valhalla and you could buy a PS4 copy, put it on your PS5, and it would give you a little free download link on the PS5 page for you to get the PS5 version of it. So thankfully this didn't become a thing because these publishers weren't dumb enough to go down this road, but Sony was preparing them for it, just building the infrastructure possible for that to be a thing by separating both game versions. Let's continue with more advantages on the Xbox Series consoles. You'd also be able to play all current third-party games, all third-party games from the previous generation, and a wide array of classics from the Xbox on an Xbox Series X, many of which were now running at 4K and 60 FPS thanks to their commitment to backwards compatibility and preservation. And you didn't have to rely on their digital stores either. You could go down to a used game store such as We Buy in my country and pick up gems like these on screen right now at a price that is cheap as dirt, bring those games home, pop the disc into the console, and it would just install the game, apply the extra resolution and FPS, and just play the game. And then of course if they weren't fucking up in the exclusive department, you would also have access to their first-party games, which would be exciting if they were good. Game Pass is also another option, but I'm not into it. That's part of my problems with Xbox. They're too focused on the Game Pass, they want to turn the entire brand into the subscription. And so there you go, it's just a couple of advantages that the Xbox was offering, and that would have been legitimate advantages if the rest of the ecosystem wasn't so screwed up, of course. But you know, it's kind of like the PlayStation situation. You could say, oh, their exclusives are better, but it's hard to justify them if the rest of the ecosystem wasn't headed down the toilet as well. So again, mismanagement on completely different things that are not related to exclusivity. Nintendo, on the other hand, you are totally right, and I got no caveats. They do exclusivity very well because they keep making games that their fan bases want. I personally can't relate, but it is what it is. And without these exclusives, the console would 100% die because it's subpar. Without exclusives, their console doesn't serve because it's weaker and doesn't run major third-party releases. That's the problem with Nintendo here. That's why they would die without the exclusives. They're not even in the same market basically, but the same thing cannot be said for PlayStation and Xbox. They exist on a totally different field. Now, hypothetically speaking, could PlayStation do what Nintendo is doing? Could they actually kill it off of exclusives alone, basically doing a repeat of the PS4, where they keep the exclusives totally locked into the console and thus increase console sales? Maybe, but I don't like this framing, and here's why. Their exclusives would have to be absolute killers in the market, and their service would have to get way better. Also, we would need way more releases. Like, you can't be out here basing the entire argument as to why I should buy your console on the exclusives, and then you're making me wait 5 goddamn years for a sequel to Ghost of Tsushima, only for me to go and find out that it's not even a sequel to Ghost of Tsushima at all. Reality is, the gaming landscape is changing a lot. Gaming isn't the same it was 10 years ago. AAA games in the scale that Sony is making them cannot be pumped out every 2 to 3 years or at max 4 like they used to over a decade ago. They'd have to change this approach, and my god, do I wish that they would, because way too much focus is being put into making these picture-perfect cinematic experiences with super graphics, when brother, all I want is just a good fun game to play and some worthwhile stories to play them through. Sony ain't doing this. They're doing the opposite, and they're killing stories dead in their cribs like they did with the sequel to Ghost of Tsushima, or turning them into gaga goo goo bullshit like they did with several parts of Spider-Man 2. And another big change in the gaming landscape, and the most important one, consoles cannot be made at incredibly cheap prices of $400 anymore. Hell, even $500 would be cheap right now. Shit, brother, even $600 would feel like a miracle these days. This is the big stinker in all of this. This is what in my mind kills their exclusivity situation. If the consoles, coupled with the subscriptions and the ever-increasing game prices, are getting so expensive, PlayStation isn't just directly competing with Xbox and Nintendo anymore, they are competing with PC. And if they're competing with PC, they're losing by a landslide on what they provide in terms of service, game variety, game prices, subscription requirements, usage restrictions, etc. Customization too. Get me my goddamn themes back, Sony. And so if a gamer is reaching the point where the price difference between buying a PC and buying a console is getting smaller, they're going to start turning to PC, and in fact I think we see this happening already. PC gaming has been growing, not falling or even stagnating. And so if we get to that point, why wouldn't Sony need more sales of their first-party games, at least on PC, in order to make more money? Consoles are sold at a loss, games are where they need to make their dough. Of course there's other avenues, they can scam us with subscriptions and live services, but that's going to destroy them. People aren't looking to get scammed. I mean, maybe a few ponies, but that's about it. I understand the argument that they need to sell consoles, and so it's like, how are they going to sell consoles without the exclusives? I get it, but that's the big problem here. That's the big issue. They're not acknowledging that their lack of service is a problem. They're just trying to use exclusives as duct tape over it. In fact, it's even worse than that. They're trying to use exclusives to bring people in and then scam them through their overpriced restrictive ecosystem. Sony in many ways is being worse than Epic Games right now. Epic Games was doing a similar thing. Hell, they're still doing it right now, they haven't stopped. They secure exclusivity deals to make certain PC games release only on their platform and not on Steam. They do this to drag people to their store while doing nothing to improve the store itself. Doing nothing to actually make it a dope platform with all of the amenities that people are used to on Steam. In my view, Sony is doing a similar thing. It's different, but the concept is similar. It's basically a total rejection to work on their platform, to make their platform a much better place for their users, to draw gamers in because it's the best place to play, and instead just secure more console sales by holding franchises hostage. In a world where PlayStation isn't screwing up anymore, in a world where their platform is actually terrific, gamer-friendly, pro-consumer, and malleable, like one of the things that is unacceptable by now is you have a PS5 and, for example, you want to play an older game from the PS4 generation, a game that should be running at 60 FPS, it doesn't work that way. You can't go on the settings and tweak it. If the studio or the publisher of the game itself doesn't bother to update it, Sony doesn't bother to work around it. So there you go, that's another little Sony pet peeve for the collection box. So in a world where these, platforms are actually good, I wouldn't complain as much about the way that they use their exclusives, because that's just it. It just hits different, It feels like passion. Like, let me try and make myself understood here. When you're treating your players well and you're generally making good games that people actually want, when you're listening to your people, when you are catering to your fan base instead of making shit that goes against them on purpose for some ideological, nonsensical reasons such as, what they usually say, challenging standards, or for other types of ideological reasons that come from a greedy nature, like forcing a barrage of live services on your brand that none of your players want, then I'll look at you and I'll actually believe that you're passionate about gaming, that you're just doing your thing, that you're setting up your own brand, and therefore you more than deserve the right to set up your business the way that you want to. Want to treat your players with your exclusives? Fine, go ahead. Can you afford it? Go for it. Valve does it too. Valve has their own exclusives. I don't get mad at them for not putting, Counter-Strike or Left 4 Dead or Dota or Team Fortress or whatever on PlayStation. Ideally, this wouldn't happen and games would just be available on all platforms, but hey, as long as you don't throw sand in my eyes, I'm not gonna get mad. But in the world we currently have, where PlayStation has been drifting off into anti-consumer bullshit and flooding their company with Californian bullshit activism and ideologues, including to the point of hiring parasites that come consult on their games, parasites who openly declare how much they despise gamers and want to challenge what gamers want, then that's not passion. That's another piece of shit corporation trying to force things I don't want down my gullet and making me pay for it. Making me pay for their own agendas of wanting to change the gaming landscape instead of catering to it, like they used to during the PS4 generation and a generation before that. And that's just outright disgusting to me. Like, you don't just pay for the garbage that they're selling you, you pay for the consequences, because what happens when that garbage fails? You think they're going to, look at their company, look at their decisions and think, okay, maybe we made some mistakes, let's revert them and try again. No. What they do is they just hike up their game prices or their subscription prices, like, oh god, goodness me, did we just lose $400 million on Concord? Oh, well, that's unfortunate. Let's just hike up the prices of our hardware, and let's make more garbage live services to try and recoup the money that we lost on Concord. Oh goodness me, the Activision deal was a huge mistake that cost us billions and billions and billions of dollars? Ah, it's too bad. Let's just hike up the price of a standard video game to $80, and let's increase the price of the subscription service by an extra $10 a month. In the dude's reply, he asked this question, which I'll read again. Do you think the entire video game ecosystem would be as healthy if consoles were prohibitively expensive for everyone? Again, no, and I don't want these console prices to go up, but they are going to go up. It's just reality. It's the same thing as the price of gas and bread. However, the ecosystem is already getting prohibitively expensive on its own. 3 months on PC have opened my eyes to an insane degree. Every goddamn sale I've been seeing on PC is better than the one on console. Sales usually run together across all platforms. If there's a carnival sale on PlayStation, for example, chances are there's one on PC too. Or for example, if a publisher is doing a sale on a platform like PlayStation, chances are if you go on PC on Steam, they're going to be doing a sale right there as well. But on PC, the sales are bigger. A $5 game on sale was still $20 on the PlayStation Store. And I mean on sale, both of them on sale. The one on Steam was cheaper. And then there's also this other thing that PlayStation also does, which is you have to pay the subscription, the PlayStation Plus service, in order to get the maximum discounts. So for example, let's say you're not subscribed to PlayStation Plus and let's say a game is on sale like Watch Dogs. PlayStation will put it on sale for $20, but if you are subscribed to PlayStation Plus, maybe it'll be like $10. Like it's a few extra dollars cheaper if you're currently subscribed. There's so many little things where they nickel and dime you, my guy. It's insane. It is very clear that the PC ecosystem is the cheapest one. So you're saving money on a console, yeah, but you're paying out the ass in the ecosystem. Ah, but they do this so they can add value to the subscription. Can you add value without being a total asshole? Like, is this impossible in modern gaming? Like, you need to hold discounts hostage now? I go on Steam, I get a higher discount for free. I go on console, like I gotta pay to get a higher discount. Anyway, so now with that change of perspective, we should honestly ask ourselves if the gaming ecosystem wouldn't be healthier for us, because it's all about us that I care about. I don't care about the executives, okay? I care about us. Wouldn't it be healthier for us if they charged a bit more money on the entry price of a console, such as the aforementioned 30% suggested by the commenter, for example, but didn't nickel and dime us on everything else while also trying to offer better service in general? Because like I said earlier, the prices of the consoles, they're going to go up anyway significantly. The era of $400 to $500 for one is over. Unless they do a Series S type of thing where they release a neutered system that is weaker on purpose and that makes developers get headaches trying to make their games run on it. I don't want to sound like a cringe lord such as that guy, Cliff Blazinski, by saying that PC gaming is the future, but it legitimately looks like it is, because these console makers are screwing up big time, and they're not fixing their mistakes on time. In fact, I'm looking at them from a distance, and they don't look that they're fixing them at all. They look like they're playing into them. They're making their ecosystems too expensive and inconvenient while offering nothing to make up for it. This is a major issue, and I do hope more gamers will consider taking the plunge into PC. I know that it's not easy, I know it's a huge commitment right off the get-go because of how expensive they are, but hey, the consoles are about to get expensive too, and what are PlayStation and Xbox doing in the meantime to convince us to put up more money into them rather than saving up for a PC? Well, Xbox is doing nothing. They look like they just quit. All they want is for you to get the Game Pass, get the Game Pass, get the Game Pass, get the Game Pass, and PlayStation wants you to shell out way more money for what you're using. They're not happy with the profits that single-player games were bringing them, so they're giving it all they got to make live service slop, hoping that one of them is going to hit it big like Fortnite or whatever and generate billions of dollars overnight. Concord was meant to be their Star Wars, according to their own words. Horizon is probably their second shot at it, and frankly, I don't even know how the we're having this discussion right now, when they are, as we speak, making a Horizon game that is exclusive to mobile. Literally, we're over here debating whether or not it's good for PlayStation to release their games on PC alongside PlayStation while they are developing a game that is exclusive to phones only. It's not even coming out on the PS5. They are losing their minds, and because of that, they are losing me. PC does have a very intimidating entry price, but from that point on, you enter a world of far more variety and savings. It has its own disadvantages. For example, there's the physical media issue. If you're a fan of physical media like I am, that's a big L on that, especially when physical media is very important for us to also be able to have control over the market and keep gaming more affordable. I have a couple of videos on that. You guys can check them out right here. I'll put them down in the description. And besides that, there's also the convenience argument. A lot of people love the plug-and-play aspect of the console. It's far more simplified, especially if they have TVs. There's always people who say, hey, just hook up your PC to a TV and there you go, but you know it's not the same. Plus, you gotta remember that there's people that don't meddle with PCs at all, you know, more casual players, for example. But even this doesn't mean that you need to open your butt cheeks to PlayStation and Xbox's mismanagement. You can always just buy the GameCube, for example, which I'm not exactly endorsing. After all, I don't even know the price of it yet, but it's an example of what these consoles should be and an alternative for you guys to consider in the future. A powerful portal that offers the convenience of a console, but the utility of a PC by also allowing us to access game settings and even an OS if we choose to. This way you could even get mods installed. This would be a huge W for consoles, and one less argument that the PC master race types would have against the console's restrictiveness. Outside, just a console, plug and play. Inside, all the rest that you would need if you wanted to hook up a keyboard and mouse. And of course, the rest that we just discussed in this video, where we're not being nickel and dimed by a PlayStation or Xbox ecosystem that are anti-consumer. But anyway, that's it as for the response and for, you know, just developing more on my thoughts in regards to all this, because I do have a lot to say in this matter. Like I said in the previous video, I've owned all of these three platforms, and these are the things that have moved me towards them and away from them. And I want us to have good stuff in the future. I don't want to see us continue getting exploited by these companies just because they think they can by holding things hostage, like exclusive games that play into our nostalgia and shit like that. But anyway, thank you all very much for watching. That's it for this video. Hope you enjoyed. Likes or comments are always appreciated, and really that's it. I'll see you on the next one. Take care.